Welcome back, everybody, to Don't Call It a Podcast. It's much bigger than that with Krissy and myself, Melanie. We are both psychic mediums, and we are here today to discuss evil spirits. And yeah, that's a really big topic, but Krissy and I both got different types of information to share. The first thing I wanted to say about evil spirits is, for me, I feel like I don't know if there's only two different kinds, because that's kind of like, severe to like narrow it down to only two. But there's two different types of evil spirits that I was personally really feeling like we should discuss. And one is disgruntled spirits, which that is a human that when they died, they carried a lot of negativity, hate, and anger with them into death because they didn't complete things, heal over things, or whatever it was for them, right? So they become this evil spirit on the other side because they took all of that low vibration frequency with them. But then there are demons too, right? And so demons are definitely evil spirits, but those were not human. But then that kind of crosses into the fact that some people, when they die and become a disgruntled spirit, kind of take on a demonic nature to them, or it's definitely a possibility. You know what I mean?
Right. That's why like I have maybe one or two other like theories, but I don't want to go over too many things at one time. But yeah, there's definitely like the low vibration, like evil spirits that can haunt a house and cause chaos and turmoil. But then I do think the like demonic, which I know we talk about this, and I don't really talk about demons, but like I just think there's a different name for all of them. But I just think, yeah, there are experiences that people have that's the only name that they can really assign to it because that is like the highest of a negative experience that you could have. And so depending, there's the same different names for the same things across the board, but just the experiences is kind of like I feel like it's almost like a tier of the whatever you name it is like how severe your attachment or your experience was.
Absolutely. And just evil spirits, whatever you want to call them, however you want to classify them, evil spirits are evil spirits. It's a spirit that wants to wreak havoc. It creates negativity. And in some severe cases, may want to harm you for whatever reason, right? We don't really know for sure what the reasoning is behind all of it. I mean, you can't just like go ask a spirit, like, what's your problem? When you're dealing with like an evil entity, they're not going to be like, oh, well, here, let me sit you down and explain to you why I'm evil, right? Like,
Right. Right. And then I just think like even evil it just equals disharmony. It just wants to cause disharmony in your life, in your vibrations, in every aspect of your reality.
yeah, I agree because it has to do with like energy and balance and frequency, right? Like life is about energy because we are energy. It's about balance because we are trying to stay in balance, stay grounded in our energy, and it's almost like these evil spirits, whatever they are, whoever they are, they just want to come in and like create some ruin, create like negative waves, negative frequencies. But, it's really up in the air. Why? Like, do they hate humans? Like,
Yep.
are we like a hated species? Like, what's the problem?
I feel like it's more of we're like an attraction, it's something that like they never get to experience because a lot of times they're never human or they're earthbound and so they don't get to have that like soul experience. So that's why we're so attractive to them. But I think even Dolores Cannon kind of says like evil is like misguided or she says misguided or misdirected energies that are unevolved. So that they see humans and our souls as ever evolving. And so they want to take part in it. So that's why we're probably, appealing to them.
Oh my gosh, I love that because it's like it's like being in high school and, an unpopular kid hating on a popular kid because they're not as popular as them. It's
Right.
like these evil spirits, if they're unevolved, it's like they're the immature spirit and we're more mature spirit, or we're here maturing as a spirit, I guess. So that actually makes a lot of sense to me. That was a really good point, Krissy.
Yeah, and even just like how our purpose is to evolve. That's why we're here, and that's why we have this human experience, and our souls are evolving. But that's why I think we talked about it just privately before, just how just hearing the term like hell, that like we self-create hell, and our own hell, it can sometimes just be not evolving, not changing. And if you see someone like even in your life that still has the same job as they did, 20 years ago, they still live in the same house, like that's some people find comfort in that, but there is like a portion that could be seen as like hell because they're not changing. Like nothing in their life has changed and everyone around them's changing and they're just kind of like, you know, kind of
Creating their
yeah,
own
just
hell.
creating their own hell. Like there's no evolution there. And that's they're missing the purpose. And so I don't know. I know a couple people like that in my life and they don't seem happy. They always do kind of seem like a little more of like a lower vibration person. And one of them actually, I do think has an attachment too of just like, low vibration, evil kind of energy that is just attracted to that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, and like you were saying, and not saying that everyone, maybe somebody's lived in their home for 50 years and they're happy there. Okay, not you, but other people that are clearly unhappy with their life, with their current situation, but yet they're doing nothing to make those changes, are definitely like creating their own hell, calling in maybe some darker kinds of energies or attracting some darker energies to them because they're stuck, stagnant, that's holding them in a negative frequency,
Right. And just staying in like a relationship that's not fulfilling or makes that not healthy, that all of that energy is stagnant can just kind of create like a hell on earth.
right? So, one thing that when I was like, just to see what would come back, Googling evil spirits, and there's not really like a load of information that comes back. But one thing that I did keep seeing was the fact that people recognizing that there are evil spirits out there, whatever you want to call them, whatever you want to label them, right? That they're out there. And this goes way back to like the beginning of freaking time, They're mentioned in the Bible, they're mentioned in other literature, they're in folklore stories from way back. And like people have always like known that there was a presence of some kind of evil spirits or some kind of low vibrational frequency.
Yeah, even if they don't necessarily name or acknowledge specifically a low vibration or like an evil spirit, they always there's evidence of it of like protections, like cats as a protection, like certain birds or other pets or different, elements as like protection. So there's
Right.
signs of protection from something if they're not even acknowledging or we don't know exactly what they're protecting themselves from.
Right. Exactly. I forgot to mention to everyone when I was talking about disgruntled spirits, I felt the need to actually look up the actual definition of the word disgruntled, just for maybe anyone that doesn't know or is unfamiliar with the term, or maybe just hearing the definition of it maybe means something to somebody. But it literally means to be unhappy, annoyed, and disappointed. So, that makes a lot of sense for like humans when we don't complete our life purpose, when we don't do what we're meant to do here. You can actually cross over and be this like hateful spirit, but that's not like what you're meant to do. That's not what you're meant to be. I feel like humans, we naturally carry this higher vibrational frequency to us, and I feel like people are born with a higher frequency, when we're babies, but then as we start getting old enough to understand people around us, we start talking and, being able to perceive things a little bit, that lowers our frequency. And then part of what we're here for is to learn how to raise it back up to where it was always supposed to be, right? And like some people kind of get lost in that journey and they never get their frequency back up or find, that center of balance within them, and then they cross over and just kind of like are in this evil dark energy.
Yep, I totally get that. And like I did like kind of I normally don't prepare notes for our podcast or like our conversations. I might take like write two or three things down to like not forget anything, but I did like kind of some channeled journaling for this just because it's such a big topic and I just don't want to get it wrong. And there's something I just want to read. So I put so many people believe in the devil that the collective has created the devil demons just by believing in them. The same way the collective I'm sorry, the same way collective prayer works, it's a pooling of energy. Only God can create an entity, but the collective fear and belief in the devil creates scenarios and situations that prove his existence to them. They set up events to prove their belief. This is true for negative, but is the same for positive. Believe what you want, that is what you will find to be true, and that there's no need to fear, because it's your own manifestation, it's your own creation. And so, especially, I always consider myself a recovering religious person from organized religion, and that's why the collective wants, like the collective church, the collective religions, create these fears, and that fear is what creates heaven and hell. That fear is what creates demons and devils, and it just it's more powerful. That's why they also have the other side where it's like collective prayer raises vibrations, but you can create good and you can also create evil out of that same intention and that same energy that you're focusing it on. So that's where like the gray area lies, is that like we're creating our own reality. And so when a collective creates their collective reality that is hell or that is a demon or the devil, then is it real? Is it true? Or is it, that's why I think it's really something different for everyone, depending on what you believe or how you live your life.
Oh my gosh, I love that the way that you looked at that, because the first thing I was hearing while you were talking was, this is interesting because this happens to me, it happens to my mom and other people that I've known. You go and watch a scary movie late at night all by yourself. What happens after that movie is over? You're in a lower vibrational energy because you were scared. Fear carries a low vibration. So I would go watch these scary movies late at night by myself. And I love horror movies, but I understand that I am, I guess, invoking evil energy by watching these types of movies. And other people are doing that too and not realizing it. And it's like, then I think to myself, did I create all of that because I allowed the movie to influence me in that kind of way? And it's like, some people may agree and some people may disagree, but it's like it almost seems like you put yourself in that kind of mode by watching the scary movies.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Like I used to love scary movies, but now that like with my like awakening or like my uh spiritual skills getting stronger, I have a hard time watching scary movies. But it's the same thing, like you watch a scary movie, then suddenly that like pile of clothing in your room looks like a person and like you're terrified, you know? It's like it seeps in more than you realize. But I do
I've
think
had dealt
scary.
with that so
Yeah.
many times. You turn on the lights and I'm like, oh, now I
Oh,
feel stupid.
or you forget you have a cat and you're like, oh my gosh, that was just the cat, thank goodness.
Right? Like, duh, that's your cat.
Well, that's one of the main reasons to have a cat, so you can blame all the noises on them.
Right?
But my husband still loves watching scary movies, and so I will with him, but like I am so aware of how it makes me feel because I don't want my vibration to be lowered because those movies do that. But also, like, I feel it. Like, I just feel the emotion in those movies way more than I ever did before. So, like, I feel the fear, I feel the angst and the anxiety, and it's just like, I don't know, I don't like it. So, I
But
usually
you know
like,
what is weird though? Because we're psychic and everything. So, and my mom is too. So, of course, that affects us that way. But what's really weird is like my brother, for instance, and he's a Taurus, and I feel like that has something to do with it. But he watches scary movies and it does not affect him in any way.
yep,
And it's
that's how my
like,
husband is. He
so
just watches the movie and just sitting there like no big deal. And I'm like, bah, bah, like under the blanket, like I'm freaking out, like
like,
kicking my legs, like
bro,
I'm exhausted after watching it. And then I'm like, I can't watch this part. I don't want to
right?
hear this.
Like my brother will get up and go right to bed like he didn't watch no scary movie. Like, bro, I can't even sleep.
I always like I live by the like garbage in, garbage out because I'm like once you see something, you can never unsee it. I'm like maybe I'm just such a visual person that like if I see something like it's in my head forever. Like it can pop up anytime it wants to. Like that visual is always there. So I'm always so careful of what I allow myself to like watch. So even if I'm hearing the movie, like I'm not gonna watch it because I will have that in my head forever and ever and ever.
Right?
So yeah.
And it's like I get the whole imagination running wild thing because I am an imaginative person. I think that it goes along with being psychic for real because I'm always imagining things, imagining scenarios, picking up on energies and adding to them to figure out messages and stuff. So it's just like part of my nature, I guess. So maybe that's why maybe watching scary movies affects me more. I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think even like whenever you go through like a spiritual awakening, it's almost like you're a toddler again. Like the whole world's new to you. Everything like feels different and everything you experience is different. And you're just kind of like wanting to like play in this new world, but like you're so aware of how everything feels. And
Yeah.
it's just yeah, like all your senses are heightened and it's just I don't know, it's a different experience. So things that you might have found enjoyment out of like 2 years ago. Like there's things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even do that, or I don't even want to partake in that, or even,
Yep.
just there's so many things that like maybe it's even getting older, but like I don't know, just the main thing I've noticed is definitely scary movies. I had a friend that wanted me to send him some of my favorite scary movies. I'm like, I don't want to lower his vibration. Like I'm not doing that. Like, we all need
Right.
our vibration raised. Like let me send you some ones that like, make me happy.
Right.
I'm like
You
such
know
a
what's
like
one
buzzkill now.
right? You know what's one really weird thing that I'm wondering if this was went for you like this, Krissy? When you were a little kid, like I mean little, I have really weird, vivid memories when I was like 2 and 3 and 4 years old of me like getting put down for a nap and seeing shadows on my wall or picking up on like spirits in the room, but not knowing that's what it was, but knowing that it was something I didn't understand. So it scared me.
Yeah, like my very first experience, I heard a man shoveling our driveway and it was like summertime, so it was like the metal scraping on like rocks. And I look out
Oh,
my
that's
window
creepy.
and I saw this old man shoveling my driveway. And
Hey,
I
mom, there's some guy in the driveway.
yeah, I did that and she took me to the doctor. Which is kind of a funny story because it goes full circle eventually. But so I seeing him and like no one else was seeing him. So like I was just more like almost felt special that I got to see them and no one else really got to. But over the years, eventually my whole family started having experiences, but I would hear them talk and they were speaking a different language and like I would
Yeah,
just have these like and I just like they're startling because like they come out of nowhere, but
yep.
I just remember being as a kid just being fascinated. But I did have this like intense fear. I think it might be a past life fear or something, but like of house fire. And I would stay up all night long, making sure my house didn't catch on fire, my family was safe. And it was just
Oh
like,
my gosh, you died that way in a past
yeah.
life.
And I was but it's kind of gone away more as a grown up, but like it's still there. That's still like, I always know the plan. I always like I'm at the hotel, like looking at the back of the door just in case. But like, yeah,
I
just
feel like you weren't supposed to die in that fire in that life.
yeah,
Or you felt that. You felt after you crossed over, hey, I wasn't supposed to cross over yet. So maybe like you carried that thought with you. You know what I mean? But I
right.
also think too that I wish I could have had your outlook on things as a kid because you were more open to it than you even realized, being accepting of like thinking, oh, that's exciting. I saw that man and no one else did. Wow.
Right.
Where if I would have had that, I was like terrified of the unknown and everything scared me, but I was kind of like brought up that way, to like fear things because I don't know. I guess people around me feared things. So it's like
Yeah.
a trickle down effect.
I've always just been like a not the best with authority, but like being raised like Catholic, and my parents were like, "Don't say anything, like just ignore it, just ignore it." I'm like, this is too cool not to ignore or to ignore, but I wasn't really allowed to share it, so I don't know. I was just this like weird in between of like, is it shameful? Is it a blessing? But yeah, I just kind of went with it. Just I didn't want to be afraid because the fear didn't feel right, and the fear was exhausting, because like a couple
Yeah.
scary things did happen, and that was like even one of my stories of just like, my parents were affected by the negative spirit in that house, and I saw it, but it never affected me. But I could see it affecting my loved ones, like with terrible
Yeah.
migraines, like debilitating migraines from my mom and my twin sister, and my dad started having drug and alcohol issues. And I knew it all stemmed from this like dark entity that was like in our basement, and it was cloaked and it was terrifying looking, but it never tried to interact with me, which was kind of interesting. But I
Oh,
would see it
yeah.
like affect, yeah, my older sister was kind of a terror of a teenager, and she actually moved out for a while, and my brother would never want to be home because he was always uncomfortable there. So it's just like this dark spirit kind of low vibration spirit kind of just like brought the vibration of our whole home and our family like down. So I just noticed how they were being affected, but I literally was never, maybe the other spirits were like protecting me, and that's why I wasn't afraid of them, because I could see them and I interacted with them. But like, yeah, everyone else in my family really got affected in some way or another, either driven out or with, actual like ailments.
Yeah. And, guys, um, talking about things like attachments and whatnot, that kind of goes in the territory of there are evil spirits, whatever you want to label it, whether it's a demon or something else that's just dark and evil, that do prey on families. Because not only did that happen to Krissy, but that happened to me and my family too. And I know that there was three evil spirits in our house. One of which was the demon of lust, and it was attached to my dad. But then there was two other ones that people will call like imps, um, which I've seen one before. They look like white furry monkeys. It's really weird. But then there's these other ones. I had this one in my closet and he called himself Demi. And now that I'm older and no more, I looked into it, and here there's a low grade demon called demigods. And this thing like told me straight up it was a demi. I just didn't know what that was. But he kind of looked like this little green leprechaun thing. Like, oh, leprechauns are real. There's one that lives in my closet, and no one believed me, but he would mess with me at night while I was trying to sleep, and I could never sleep. I had nightmares. I was afraid to be out of the covers, like I had to have my head covered up. It was just horrible. And here, this evil spirit, it didn't have any power over me. I was giving it power over me by being afraid of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like one part, like that's why sometimes I think that the low vibration demons or anything that we might encounter, like they could also be elementals. Like the one that was in my haunted house, I feel like it came from the land. And ever since I was little, I'm like, this isn't from heaven or hell. Like this is from the land, and that land was also very active. Like I live in Pennsylvania, so there are a lot of like battles and fought on like different farmlands and everything. And I just feel like the land is where a lot of the low vibration comes from because they've never been human. And I actually, let's see, I wrote down just like the definition or oh, just like elementals are like earth spirits. They operate on basic desires. So that's why like even, the demon of lust could be the elemental of lust. Just to give like another
Yeah.
perspective of it. And that like possessions are an elemental taking over. They cannot incarnate, even if they do evolve. They have to go when you say to go. They are not a reasoning spirit. And there are high and low vibration elementals. They are a feeling energy. Some also most are attracted to high vibration. So like children that are like playful and happy, like that's why they can be attracted to you.
Yeah.
And uh yeah, just
I
like
feel like there's two different kinds of elementals, good and bad,
right.
you
Oh
know?
yeah, there's high vibration,
'Cause,
low vibration, yeah, of the
yes.
elementals for sure.
What's really weird, you guys, is I will be sitting in my meditation room and there's trees lining the front in front of my house here. And I will look in the trees and see the weirdest but funniest faces. And I feel like it's like the nature elementals, and they're fun and they have like a higher frequency and they're like positive. So they make me laugh and smile. You know what I mean? But then I feel like there's like some dark elemental spirits. And it's like, I don't know why they're dark. Maybe it's just because the ebb and flow. There's got to be good with bad, light and dark, or like we can't exist.
Right, exactly. And I think vibrations are energy. Like we're energy, the elementals are energy. So that energy can't be created or destroyed, so it has to manifest into something. And so I have just from Dolores Cannon, she put that elemental spirit, it's like a for possessions, it's a warp spirit, lower than human souls. They come from formation and they are bent and evil. That there's an imbalance in the person's karma that might take on the possession of an elemental, like a low vibration one, and that there's a serious imbalance. She gave the example of a vacuum, and that a vacuum needs to be filled. It's a magnet to them, and they are drawn in. They are unorganized energy and don't want to be there. It's not on purpose. Since they are unorganized energy, they act erratic and violent. The imbalance of
Interesting.
energies and cause and effect. Elementals are drawn and not invaders. So I feel like with that being said, like the possessions are kind of open to people who might have like even like openings in their auras, maybe due to like unbalanced karma, and that they might even help push you in the direction of what you might need to be fulfilling in your life. But that's why you have like that vacuum of the hole in your aura, and then like they can come in.
Yeah.
But because so many times possession seems so random, and there's people that are like in the woods making sacrifices and like worshiping the devil, but like they never get possessed. But there might be like a child who goes to Sunday school and maybe stole a piece of candy or something, and like then suddenly they get like there's no really rhyme or reason to it specifically. So or
Yeah.
like no recipe to it. So it's like it seems random, but it's person to person of how, they manage and cleanse their energy and they protect it, and also how, how they just, live their life karmically.
Yeah, and I really think that it is so interesting, Krissy, that you brought up about elementals in this discussion of evil spirits because it kind of goes hand in hand, I feel. Because one thing is in American Indian cultures, within the tribe, there was a shaman. That person's job was to connect with the elemental spirits for sure, like other spirits too, probably, but the elemental spirits because there's nature spirits, there's water spirits. So If they needed rain to grow their crops, the shaman would connect with the water elemental. Please give us rain, give us water to grow our crops. And they even like made energetic exchanges with these spirits to get what they wanted. And it's like some of those spirits were darker and like they were doing animal sacrifices and different
Yep.
things like that.
Yeah, when I moved to my new house, like the land was very active, and I had a friend who has Native American heritage, and she told me to bury an offering, and she's like in a meaningful spot, and as we're talking, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where. And she actually named. She's like, oh, you're gonna bury it right there. I'm like, yeah, okay, so that was the right spot to choose, and I just took one thing from my son, my husband, and myself that was kind of meaningful, like a crystal or a little toy or something. And I buried it on the land. And ever since then, I feel like it's more positive. We're not seeing like an influx of like spirits and energy and because it was a little chaotic when we first moved in, and that really helped. And I just think even I sound like crazy half the time because I do even talk to the trees and stuff whenever we have big storms coming, just to like help protect my home and just to thank them for the land that we're living on. Like there's things like simple things. It takes like 10 seconds just to be like, oh, thank you for the land and like for letting me build my home here, or to,
Right?
purchase land to build on, like to asking permission, because sometimes your blockage of like why a deal might not be going through for land might be because you might have not the best intentions, or the land might not understand your intentions for why you're buying it. So there's
Yes.
so much like
And hey, we're all crazy,
I
baby.
know we're all crazy,
But
but
I
it
love
works, and
that
I feel
you,
good about that. Yeah,
yeah,
like talk to the trees. I always come back and I'm like, I feel protected, and I mean, yeah, we've had protection since.
and you know what that just made me think of too is that what if before humans existed on this planet, it was only elemental spirits living here, and then we got put here, and these elemental spirits were like, hey, who are you? We were here first. So maybe that's why some of these evil spirits or darker spirits mess with some of us because we're not properly coexisting with them. Like we're not giving offerings, we're not being thankful for the land, for the prosperity of life here.
Right, exactly. And even that's why I think some land was chosen to have a battle on, because it could have been a low vibration elementals, like collective there, or then there are spirits that are stuck there or also were low vibration. So that's why like certain land can seem heavier than others, and that's why certain
Yep.
houses are haunted. I mean, I do think like most places are haunted to some degree in
At this
some
point,
way.
right? I mean, this whole world's existed for a long time. There's been
Yeah.
plenty of time for stuff to accumulate.
Yeah, so I think like there's whenever there's like yeah, accumulation of negative, it can be that could land bound or earthbound, a negative spirit or yeah, negative element and or elemental, and then they can kind of take over if you're feeling that negative
Right?
and it's bringing you down. That's why like you have to work to keep your vibration up, because
Yep.
then if you let it get too low, like then you're susceptible. That's whenever like the possessions and stuff happen.
Right. And, that kind of leads me into what do we see a lot when we're watching ghost shows and, things of that nature where somebody's like, oh my gosh, there's an evil spirit or a demon in my house. And what do? They hire a shaman or a psychic or a medium or somebody of that nature, a spiritual person to come in and cleanse and clear it out. And probably part of that cleansing ritual is offering some kind of offering to that spirit to allow the family to reside in the home or on the land and things of that nature. So it kind of always comes back to like making like what's the word I'm looking for? An even energetic exchange with something that was here before we were is what it feels like to me.
Right. Yep, totally agree. And that's why like I just even wrote a little thing. It's like that we are all energy, we are souls. Thoughts are energy, and they're real. So souls can manipulate energy into our lives. So what you're experiencing is real because it's energy. And And if you're thinking that you're having an attachment, or you thinking that something negative is affecting you, like acknowledge that, because then once it's real to you, instead of ignoring it, it's giving it more power. Then you can actually make, steps into detaching it or healing from, that low vibration. And maybe it's even just like a heads up, like your vibration's lowering, start working on bringing it up.
Absolutely. So now this is a really weird question that I'm just putting out there for everyone to ask, okay? And seek an answer for, because it's interesting. And it's like evil spirits, demons, disgruntled spirits, whatever, evil spirits, they seem to wreak havoc, right? Wherever you're dealing with them at. Whether it's just you personally in your life, or if it's in your home, or if it's on your property, or wherever you're dealing with this, the question I have is, are they here to put us through negative energetic experiences that other humans can't create for us? You know what I mean? Because we're here to learn negative and positive lessons, but maybe the spirits of the planet are meant to teach us things that other living beings can't.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's why like some people are more open to it, like to getting an attachment or anything. It might be a lesson, but that's why I think it goes up back to like the karma, of having that like unbalanced karma, that you're maybe not listening to like your guides or your angels giving you some guidance. And so your karma is that you're going to be swayed the other way. So you can kind of see which path you really should be going down. There is free will, but there's also guidance. And if you keep ignoring it, then they're just going to be like, all right, we'll let you try it on your own and see what happens. And that's whenever the
Yeah.
protections are gone and they're down and we're susceptible to all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of leads me into the fact that I personally had a demonic attachment, and I call it a demonic attachment and not just an attachment, but there is attachments and then also demonic attachments. And I just want to put out there that I dealt with this for a good 15 years of my life, and I don't think that's like, I don't want to say it's rare, but I don't think that everyone that gets attachments keeps them for that long. But there was something within mine that I wasn't learning, or I wasn't doing what I needed to do. I wasn't making the proper changes. So I was kind of like inviting that attachment to stay with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like we are our surroundings. So if you're surrounding yourself with other negative people, that like that's kept you feeding it.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, um, this this is a long story for me, but I shortened it up, guys, okay? But basically, it started out with it really started with my dad, because my dad, when he was younger, was going and doing things he shouldn't have been doing, was engaging in really negative and toxic types of behaviors, and things of that nature. And I think that he picked up the attachment somewhere he was that he wasn't supposed to be. And then instead of like fighting against it or acknowledging it, he kind of did the same thing I did and allowed it to stay and just kind of started working with it, not even realizing what he was doing. And then, skipping way ahead in the story, to him having his family, I was the youngest. And you do hear a lot of times in like scary movies about demons, and people telling their real life stories that the demon or the attachment, the evil spirit, will oftentimes target the youngest child in the household. I was the youngest child. I was also very weak, weakened by fear, anxiety, stress of adult things that I shouldn't have even been worrying about, like the whole shebang, right? And it kind of at first it made me feel crazy as a child. Like it singled me out. Like I was getting bullied at school, I was making friends, going to slumber parties. Next thing you know, everyone at the slumber party turned against me and just tortured me all night with bullying. And I almost feel like it was the demonic attachment or the evil spirit that was I was carrying with me everywhere I went. It seemed to create negativity and make bad things happen, so to speak. And like kind of looking back, I feel like there was so many lessons I learned throughout all of it. It's really crazy.
Yeah, that's so like so sad to hear to that you had to go through that, but I think it definitely was part of your karma or like part of your purpose too. But the girls might have been like picking up on that and like been kind of messed with from the your attachment. So they took it out on you, not knowing where it was coming from.
Right. And then, skipping ahead again further, into my teenage years, I started hearing my attachment speaking to me clairaudiently, telling me to do things like, oh, you should try drugs. Oh, you should get drunk. Oh, you should sneak out with these boys in the middle of the night, not tell anybody, stuff like that. And I was doing all of these things thinking that it was me telling myself, oh, try this, do this, because it just sounded like my own voice in my head for real. And I still question today, like, was I supposed to make those negative choices and have those negative experiences? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to play the victim, be like, oh, I had a demonic attachment and it ruined my life. That's how I used to look at it, but I look at it so differently, with fresh perspective, I guess, where it's like, well, hey, you know what? That made me a smarter person. I learned a lot of negative lessons. Was it life threatening? Yeah, it was, but that's because I took it that far.
Right.
Just because a voice in my head said I should try drugs didn't mean I should go do it, but I went and did it. You know what I mean? So there was like some kind of like off balance within me, I guess, during all of that time.
Yeah, I think it's also part of like your journey. Like, I know we've talked, I don't know, a little bit like within your readings. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but that
Oh no, you're fine.
you you needed to go through that to like even end some family like trauma and some family like habits. Also, I do feel like now what you're doing, you are so fearless with facing evil or negativity that if you didn't face it then and kind of learn every aspect with it and live with it for so long, it's like you don't know what, like you're almost like at war with it now because you're protecting, but you wouldn't know what you were at war with unless you faced it. And since you've already faced it, like you're more powerful knowing all the tricks and the trades and all the little manipulations and everything that like that experience just made you a stronger psychic and a stronger medium.
It really did. And then it's like then I start thinking things like, do all psychics go through stuff like that? Or, or people maybe on the same journey as me? You know what I mean? Because then it went through levels because this is like 15, 17 years of my life that I had these experiences and went through this, right? And like the next stage was I got skipping ahead again into like my early 20s and in that time era, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, right? And I went through this phase and all those years where this attachment I had was continuously showing me these horrific visions of me dying and all these horrible scenarios and like almost like a horror movie playing in my own mind. Like I would be driving down the road, right? And all of a sudden I'd see a car coming at me in the other lane on like a road where it's 55 miles an hour. And I would hear a voice say, jerk the wheel and hit him head on. What? No,
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. Like, what kind of lesson is that? Like, Is that like teaching me to go against what the voice says in my head and do what I know is right, no matter what I'm hearing or being told? You know what I mean? Because like the weird visions that were like just so horrific, it's like what was that really teaching me? It
It
was
was like
really
almost like a
scary
test.
too. Just
Yeah, I think it was like a test of your will,
right?
like your will to live, your will to make
Like
good
how much do you
choices.
value your life?
Yeah. Yep. That's why I don't ever want to like push my beliefs on anyone, but I never think God tests us. But I do think that was a test for you, but it was coming from an attachment, not from God. So when you feel
Yes.
like you're being tested, check the source of the test because it's most likely not coming from God, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I've probably said in the past in some of my psychic readings that are posted online that God is testing you. This was a test, but I just don't know how else to say that. I don't know where the test is coming from, but we all get tested all the time because it's just a test is a lesson is a test,
I
right?
know. Yeah, it's such an easy
It's
thing
not
to say.
specifically a test, but it
Yeah.
kind of is.
Right. Yeah, or even just like a nudge in which direction, because like whatever choice or however you handle a situation or a challenge, is it going to make you stronger, weaker? Is it going to push you to go this way or that way? So like yeah, for God, I don't think it's necessarily a test. It's like choose your own adventure. But like
Right?
yeah.
Like, which path are you going to take? I'm just curious to see
Yeah,
what
just
you're going to
yeah,
do.
like I'm gonna give you these challenges and see what you do with them or whatever.
Right?
And yeah, for your guidance, so because it's free will, but like for like an actual test like that, I think that's definitely like an attachment just to see test your own willpower of.
And as you're saying that, I'm hearing spirits say also, we all have a soul, right? That's our spirit that makes us who we are, makes us alive. Our soul is our higher self. And I feel that our higher self has a lot to do with the test. Like, spirits, like, oh, your higher self tests you more than anything else because your higher self knows what you're here for, what you're capable of. So it's going to push you further than anything else ever could or would, right? I mean, that just feels
Yeah.
so right to me.
Oh no, I do, and I think those like intrusive thoughts are even our higher self, maybe that's like our true test. It's like our big sister or big brother being like, well, I dare you to do this. And if you don't do it, then it's just like, yeah, maybe that's more of like the tester.
Like, okay, we told her to hit that car head on, but she didn't do it. So we're getting some.
Working yeah, she's on the right path. Maybe it's as simple as that. I like to simplify things.
Right. So, we're going to skip to the end of the attachment story for me. Because I just wanted to cover like the important parts of it, right? And because I could talk about this for a year straight because it went on for so many years of my life. But the next part I'm at now is where I've been a drug addict for years. I've been in and out of jail, halfway houses, had all these experiences, and it was just time for me to be done with all of it, right? And I just got to a point where I was done listening to the dark voice in my head telling me to do bad things because just because I was hearing it in here didn't mean I was actually supposed to follow through and do it. So maybe part of my lessons was having a darker attachment to kind of nudge me in the wrong direction. And I was supposed to fight against it. And until I did, I couldn't free myself from it.
Oh yeah, I mean, even though you went through hell and back, I think there was definitely even maybe a soul contract that you would go through that to evolve your soul faster. Because a lot of times we take on these bigger challenges so we can evolve faster. And this might be like your first lifetime just really coming out as like a psychic and a medium, and you had to go through that to like accelerate your abilities and your soul growth and your spiritual growth as well.
Right. And so I'm just backtracking just a little bit just to tell this one little part because it's interesting, right? So when the attachment left me, I actually saw it happen, and it was a really crazy experience. It was the first time I decided I didn't want to be a drug addict. I didn't want to go to jail anymore. I didn't want to live the toxic life that I was living anymore because I was not happy. All right. I was lying to myself, telling myself I was happy when I wasn't. And I decided finally to put myself into rehab for the first time. Okay. I was in rehab 3 times. All right. The third time it worked finally. But
Third
the
time's a
first time
charm.
right. The first time I went, I was right before I went, I was on a waiting list for a few months, and I had just gotten on the waiting list, and they said, if you don't call every Tuesday at this time, you're booted off the list. All right. So it was huge importance for me to call every Tuesday at that time, and then I kind of started thinking, like, oh, what if I just miss a call and get booted off? Oh, well. And I was in my dad's garage, wasted out of my mind. I drank like over a 30 pack of beer, which was no big deal for me. Okay. Back then. And I was sitting there on a milk crate, feeling sorry for myself, feeling depressed, feeling like I couldn't do anything to change my life. And I felt a presence behind me, and I turned around, and lo and behold, death came. And he was terrifying, but I was not scared of him. He wasn't there to scare me or be scary. He was there to tell me that if I didn't go to rehab, I was going to die. And I had to make a choice right then and there. What do you want to do here? And like, listen, you guys, this was the coolest experience, one of the coolest I ever had. He was as tall as the garage ceiling, like his head went all the way from the floor, but he was floating about this high off the ground. He had no feet, no hands, but he was wearing a black hooded cloak that went all the way down, and his face just looked like a skeleton. um it was real dark. It wasn't like Skeletor looking. It was kind of dark. You almost couldn't see it, right? And he just kind of loomed there. He was just kind of floating there, just there. And it's like he telepathically showed me, like, you can either take this path or you can take that path, and it's all up to you in which direction you want to go. But the outcome over here is death, and the outcome over here is life. So what do you want to do? And I chose life. I chose life. That's why I'm here.
Right.
And then a few weeks later, I got into the rehab, and I was laying in my bunk, and there's 4 beds in my room, and all of us were getting ready to go to bed. And I was laying there in my bunk, and everybody had their little lamps on by their beds, right? And I was just laying, kind of like looking up. All of a sudden, I felt like, how some people say when you die, and your soul departs from you, it could feel like Velcro being
Right.
pulled
Yep. I've heard
apart.
that.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. I don't know how to put that in words any better than that, but I felt like something came out of me. And then on the wall next to me, there was this huge, terrifying shadow. And I thought at the time it was an angel because it had these huge wings. Um, but the one thing I noticed was it flew around the room on all 4 of the walls. And when it got onto the fourth wall, it kind of disappeared into the crack, like it left the building. But right before it disappeared, I saw its feet, and it had these like gangly, long, weird nail things. And then I've had people tell me like angels look like monsters. But no, I had this feeling of relief that this thing left me. So that's why I feel like for me it was a demon.
Right.
Um, but not every attachment is a demon, right? It could
Right.
just be anything that attached to you. It could be a ghost of a human. It doesn't even have to be necessarily evil.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different instances there.
Yeah, for sure. And even your experience with like death, it's like that's why he's referred to as like the angel of death because he's not always seen as he's taking your soul. He's giving you a chance, or he's giving you an option, or he's
Yeah.
giving you the choice to, it's like whenever you get the death card in tarot, it's not death physically, it's death of a bad habit or death of your old self.
Oh my gosh, yes. And dude, when I was sitting there looking at death, can I just say it was nothing short of amazing and also terrifying. He looked so scary, but I wasn't scared. I didn't know I was psychic then yet.
Right?
I didn't even know why I was seeing that or what was even going on. I should have been totally severely horrified, but felt so calm. And
Yeah.
that's how, like, I know, like, death is an angel. Like, he's an angel, a bringer of positivity, but also a bringer of the truth. And sometimes the truth doesn't want to be heard, or you don't want to know the truth. So maybe when death brings the truth to you, you're not ready to face it. So maybe it is terrifying. You know what I mean?
Right. And just that's why we always say like you go by a feeling, because even when we're talking about shadow people and like that feeling, like that instinct, that gut feeling that will tell you. And when you feel calm and peace, you know it's something positive. But if you feel the fear and the anxiety, you know it's something negative and that you shouldn't be interacting with it and you should put up your protections.
Right. And it's like, hey, you could say shadow people are evil people or
Yeah.
evil people, evil spirits. Um, because there's so many different things that can fall into this category for real. Like it's such a huge area,
It's
you know what
huge.
I
I know.
mean?
That's why like I had to write stuff down because I'm just like there's too
Right,
much and it's too important to like not get right or not get
right.
the message across properly.
So the conclusion to my story, because Krissy has some stories to share too, um, is I'm a success story. I chose life. My dad, on the other hand, is not a success story because he also carried the attachment, but he chose to take the death path and he died. He died with that attachment because he never made the changes. He never took that step towards bettering anything in his life and just kept drinking and doing drugs and doing toxic things and living unhappy, but pretending to be happy. And I guess, like, the moral of the story is please always go after what makes you happy. Don't hold yourself back,
Right. And like heed the
do what you
warnings.
know you need to do.
Yeah. And like I feel like he had to have been visited by the angel of death too, and he didn't take them serious. And that's could be, like I wouldn't doubt him having a similar experience as you. But he
Oh, yeah.
chose, yeah, he chose one way, you chose the other, and that's exactly how life goes.
And one more quick story because my dad, he's here in spirit. He's always with me. And he's like, tell them about that one thing that happened to me. I love you, Daddy. And I'm going to tell him. So I believe this was my dad's dad in spirit. He had already crossed over. And he was so angry that my dad was refusing to release his attachment and do what he needed to do that was right in his life. Then my dad had, he'd wake up real early in the morning, get wasted, drunk, and then go do nap. Well, he went and he did that. And he said he just laid down in his bed and he heard because he had a big ranch house, like a big 3-bedroom ranch. Okay. And he heard somebody walking from the kitchen through the living room down the hallway to his bedroom at the end of the hallway. And whoever it was stomping so loud, like boom, boom, boom. And he said it got louder and louder and louder as it approached. And he said he was so freaking scared. He was like covered up in his bed, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? And he's like, he knew it wasn't a real person because his house was locked. So it got to his bedroom door, because when you live in a house, where there's a sound coming from. And he heard
Yeah,
it
you
walk
know the
down the
noises.
hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah. It got to his bedroom door and it stopped and everything went silent. He was just in there like, right? And then all of a sudden he felt like wind, a breeze like go over him. And then next thing you know, he felt a giant hand on his back pick him up by his shirt, lift him up a good 4 feet off his bed, and like threw him back down so hard that he bounced 3 or 4 times off his bed,
Oh,
up and
wow.
down from the force. And he told me about it, and I didn't even know I was psychic yet. Then the first thing I said, that was your dad. He is mad at you. Your dad did that because you won't listen. And now it all makes sense to me because look at what ended up happening. His dad, the spirits helping him were trying to like, you're going to die. You're not going to complete your life's purpose. You're not going to learn anything you needed to learn because you're ignoring it all, you know?
Yeah, totally. That's so crazy. Like you never told me that story before. And I have a friend who had
Gives
this
me the
very
chills
similar
because
one.
that would terrify me.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying. I've had like some pushes and shoves and stuff before, but nothing like that.
When he was telling me, I was sitting there like, I feel like this is a horror movie.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
he was scared too. He was meant to be scared.
Hmm.
Whether it was his dad or not, I feel it was, but whatever it was trying to scare him because he wasn't getting it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that like I have a friend who had kind of a similar experience and she was kind of going down the wrong path with just like partying too much. And then whenever partying isn't really partying anymore, it becomes a lifestyle. And
Yeah,
she moved into a new house. And the first time I went there was something heavy. And I couldn't quite figure it out, but I felt like it was like a male presence. And I'm like, I feel like this might be like your dad or like your grandpa or something. And she's like,
yeah.
oh, great, that's wonderful. But I'm like, they're not exactly happy with you. Because to me, it felt like they were like in my face, like, get it together, like it was very like abrasive kind of energy. And over like maybe the next
You're
like
like, she don't
yeah.
even know.
I was like, there's one bathroom I wouldn't even use in her house because like it was just such like it was almost like whenever
No.
you're someone's trying to get you aside, like, hey, like help her out, but I wasn't listening. I'm just like, I'm just here for a pizza.
Hey, that is how oblivious we are when we're low vibrational. We can't even feel the intense energies around us.
Oh yeah, it
We
was
didn't
so
even have any
intense.
idea.
And I could never really be at her house for more than like an hour or two because I just felt the energy. It was
Oh,
just like
that's
it
all
was
bad.
constant. Yeah. So she had the same kind of experience. She was sleeping in her bed and she heard the footsteps come up her basement stairs. And I always felt the experience, like the presence really strong in the basement. And that's where like her game room and stuff was. And then walk over to like her bedroom and stop. And then she smelled like cigarette smoke, which was like her dad's kind of scent, I guess. Like and she heard like the heavy breathing and she was just terrified. And then a few other like kind of paranormal things happened. And she kept like even getting deeper and deeper into like alcoholism. And then she had a couple falls and she had to like keep going to the hospital for these falls. And then finally,
Oh
like,
my
I was just
gosh.
like, you need to get out of this house. Like, you got to
Yeah.
move. And within like maybe 6 weeks of her final hospital stay from falling from drinking too much, and she wasn't even remembering drinking that much. It was like such a heavy influence, like just to get her out and just to get her out of that cycle. Because like I don't know,
Right.
like her tolerance wasn't going up, it was going down, which was really strange. And so finally she
Yeah.
moved out and she hasn't touched alcohol since. She's like, I have no desire. Like
Well,
I don't even know who I was. And
that's
to her, she think
great.
that was definitely like some kind of there is an influence over her to party and like have that negative those negative choices. But then
Yeah.
her dad was mad at her. I kept saying, I'm like, it's a family member, it's a male family member. Like he's mad at you. He's trying to scare
Yeah.
you out of this house because that house had some
Because she
kind of
wouldn't listen.
yeah. And that house definitely had some negative attachment to her. And so once she moved, I never experienced her dad again, and she never really drank again. So it was
And you
just
know what's
like
crazy too? Even a family member can pose as an evil spirit
to scare
because
you
that would have
straight.
came off like, oh my God, there's a demon in my house. No, it's your dad and he's mad at you because you
Yeah.
won't listen.
And that was totally her dad's like personality too, just like rule with an iron fist. And he's like,
Oh yeah.
she's not listening to anything. So it was just kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Same, yes, similar thing. Um,
And really quick, sorry, I just
no,
want to
you're
say before
fine.
I forget, when you said about her evil spirits or whoever it was in the basement, they were always in the basement at my dad's house too throughout all the years. And now I'm kind of thinking that there's like a reason for that because the basement is
Like
underground.
the elemental,
And it's like maybe the spirits stayed in the basement mostly because it was keeping them grounded, however that works for spirits.
or they are feeding off
Because
of
they,
the earth's energy, like,
yeah, they were always in the basement. They would come up in the house and in the garage a lot, but they kind of resided in the basement. And we all just kind of knew that, you know?
yeah, like my haunted house growing up, that was the same thing. I felt like they all were like kind of, there was like a hive in the basement of them.
Yeah,
And they would
so
come through the
weird.
house and then go back down. But there was a lot of activity in the basement. Well, we would hear like furniture and stuff moving. Then we'd go downstairs and
Yeah.
nothing was moved, or doors were always
And
slamming.
weird old music playing, like that would be on some record player before even radio was invented.
Yep, exactly.
And
And
people talking like there's a party going on. And then you
yeah.
go open the door and it's all dark, like, oh, there's no one down there.
Right. Yeah, it's so strange. And like totally
Yeah,
experienced all of that. Like, yeah, you felt like there were people in the basement, like no one was down there. And
right. Like
our basement
people under
wasn't
the stairs.
finished. Yeah. It wasn't finished, but like my dad's office was down there, and I think that's why he got influenced so much and he got into
My
like,
dad's office was in our basement. That
yeah,
is so
see, there
weird.
you go.
Me and Krissy almost lived the exact same life. I can't even. We have so many similarities.
So,
It is
so
crazy.
many, it's weird. We never met each other until like what, 4 or 5 months ago.
In the end of June.
Yes, so crazy. But our we had a pump room, and that's where like that dark entity, I would always see it, or I knew where it stayed. And it was like a room, nothing else was in it, just like we had a well, so it was like the pump. And it was so creepy in there. It was right next to the washer and dryer. So like I would just have full anxiety just trying to like throw laundry in, just like run upstairs.
Oh,
And you always felt
I'm
like
feeling
something,
it. I'm getting the
it
goose.
was awful. But that's like, yeah, that's how like there's different ways it comes through. And the second we moved out of that house, like my mom and my sister never had migraines again. And my
Wow.
dad moved, he still had his issues and like his own like demons to like that stayed with him with it. But I think that was also kind of established before we moved in, and it just kind of got exacerbated well with the extra energy
Yeah.
and the extra influences. But yeah, it's interesting like how it's everywhere, but we only really experience it at low points of our lives. And so it's just so
Yeah.
important to be aware of that and just be aware of like your state of mind. If you're starting to feel like something's influencing you, like do a self check, like check in with yourself and just be like,
Yeah.
what's happening in my life? What can I control? How can I raise my vibration? Sometimes it's as simple as just like singing and dancing in your kitchen, just to kind of like shed that like,
Yes.
negative energy. Like you do a lot of instead of like meditation, you do a lot of like music.
Yeah, and that's funny you said that because I did forget to mention, guys, that throughout the experience and the attachment I had, that evil spirit or demon that attached to my dad and I, it couldn't attach to my mom and brother because they were too strong to accept that into their energy. So it drove them out of the house. But once they were out of the house and it was just me and my dad, I, for like 8 hours sometimes, would just blast my music and sing at the top of my lungs and dance around in my house while my dad was gone. And I'm telling you, there is magic in singing and dancing and moving your body and enjoying who you are and loving yourself, even if it's just for that moment. And for
Right.
me, singing takes me to that place,
Yeah.
and it's something different for everyone. But I could feel the demons in the house getting angry when I would do that. And I'd be like singing and just really feeling myself and feeling amazing and so happy. And then all of a sudden, like, something would fly off the shelf and bust on the floor. And it was like whatever the darkness was didn't like me meditating. I didn't even know that's what I was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's also important to be aware of like what kind of music you're listening to, because there is low vibration music, but like it sounds like obviously you're listening to like high vibration music.
Oh,
And
well, back then I was listening to rap and it was kind of like gangster rap style. So they were actually singing about really negative things like robbing
oh,
people
that's
and doing really
interesting.
bad stuff. So that's kind of negative, but I took it as a positive because it was still music.
Yeah,
and I
and
liked it.
it was higher than they were, the demons were anyway. So either way, it was like a higher vibration than them. But like, yeah, and it's
Right.
interesting. That's what was like drawn to.
Then I mixed in like some Mariah Carey and some more soft rock because I liked a whole array of music.
Yeah, I like everything now too.
Me too. There is a few people that I quit listening to because I can't support their music if I can't stand who they are as a person. I'm just saying, but
I agree. Yep,
that's
that's
a
why
whole different story.
any celebrity or any band I've loved, like I never want to meet them because I'm like, I just let me just keep remembering that
Let
like
me have
you're a
a
good
fantasy that
person.
you're
Yeah,
nice people and you're everything I wished you would be.
yeah, exactly. Well, I have a few things to add. So the one thing was just like a definition of what like a demon is, or even like the Lucifer definition from Dolores Cannon.
Yes.
So I've been reading her book, Between Death and Life, and her definition is like Lucifer is fallen from a high formation due to his want for power and greed. That demons are the low vibration or negative elementals of the earth who surround him and are associated with evil. So that's like her definition of a of Lucifer, how Lucifer exists, just like like fallen angel, but then all of the negative elementals kind of feed off of like him and his desire for yeah, just like power. So, and not that like,
Yeah.
but power is, I don't know, not always a negative thing. It's just what you want to do with it. So that's why we have to, be careful who's in power. And so one thing I just even wrote down that like I had to, even for this conversation, kind of, said like I'm recovering religious. I was born and raised like Catholic. And so I had to
Same.
like let go of the idea of hell to recover from organized religion mentality and
Yep.
just kind of take it back to the basics. So I do a lot of like channeled writing and even just, I have an interesting one about baptism, which was also used in exorcisms and stuff even according to like the Bible, but I had to kind of forget about hell to be able to recover from my religious beliefs because hell was such a threat all the time. And just even from the Dolores book, she put like the sin is a threat made by the church, that there is no hell. Our minds can create our own hell. Not changing or evolving can be our hell. I think I added that one myself, but I don't know. Someone who believes that they're a bad person is going to hell or that they are not perfect and don't deserve to go to heaven that is extreme brainwashing and does major amount of damage to the person. That is where organized religion can do more harm than good. By making people fear hell so extremely, it actually creates a hell for them. They actually manufacture their own hell, and that only create and only the creator themselves can release themselves from the hell. So
Yeah.
that's why I just think like your state of mind, your beliefs are like our thoughts are reality, our thoughts are real. And
Yeah.
if anyone's kind of struggling with like getting out of religion or that religious belief, like my best advice to you right now would just be like drop the term hell because it doesn't exist. I mean, I if you need more information, there's a couple, we can even post some resources of like different books and different even websites and people to follow to like look up different options because it's not as like black and white as like heaven and hell. There's our hell is our own creation. So even whenever I've listened to some past life or near death experiences from people and they're like, I went to hell, but it was because they didn't believe that they belonged in heaven, which is so sad to think that anyone would ever live that way. Um,
They were conditioned.
yeah, conditioned to not even like believe in themselves.
Yep.
So, and even on earth, we can create our own hell, and it's sometimes hard to get out of that mindset and that mentality whenever like you might just be having like a bad week, month, year, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, can I get out of this? But you can. It's just you have to really focus and on your thoughts, on the way you talk to yourself, on the way you're approaching every day. Like I say every single day, I say today is a great day. And no matter what happens in that day, I'm like, today is a great day. Like there's good in every day. There's good in every situation. You just have to find it and really train your brain to think that way.
Yeah,
Um,
and I just want to add to that really quick too that hey guys, there's different levels of perceiving this, right? And I have been through a lot of different levels where I've upgraded and my perception has changed, but a few years ago, I had to believe and tell myself that there is no hell. And it made so much sense to me, but it also helped me. Do I want to say desensitize myself to the whole aspect of there being a hell? Because I was so afraid that I might go there that I didn't want to actually put myself there because I understood things a little bit differently, right? But then I kind of moved out of that. But everybody perceives things differently and is at a different level. So some people, it might make sense to tell themselves there isn't a hell. And maybe other people need to feel like, well, there is a place for murderous people or bad people that do horrible things. And there is, but like to me now, the way I perceive hell is it's the lowest layer of the astral realm. It's not hell. That's not what it is. It's just the lowest layer of the spirit realm. And that's the lowest layer is where the lowest frequencies reside. The lowest frequencies are negative and more toxic than the higher frequencies. So the top of the spirit realms where all the angels are and everything and God, but then the bottom is where the lower frequencies reside. And that in itself could be considered hell, but isn't actually hell.
yeah, it's not actually hell, but like also as you heal and you face your own like demons after death, like you can raise to the other realms and
Yep.
you're not no one's stuck. Like you're
Yeah,
not
you're
burning in
not
hell. Like, yeah.
banished there forever. That's
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
human made. Humans made that up. Like, oh, if you go to hell, that's for eternity. Only if you choose.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, a lot just there you have more control over it than you think. And so I don't know. I did some channeled writing. We're not gonna have time for it today about like different like recovering religion stuff, but we might
Maybe we
do.
should do a whole
Yeah, I
podcast
mean,
on that because
I
that's
probably
a
have a whole
big
podcast worth
topic,
of like channeled messages about that stuff.
right?
So I actually had like an attachment, and that's whenever I was like a little more low vibration before I even started my spiritual awakening. I was awakening, but fearful because I was still stuck in that religious belief of like I'm gonna go to hell if I believe this, or if I think of God differently than I was taught in the church, that He's going to not love me and I'm gonna go to hell. Like it was just like constant. So I really had to get rid of the mindset of that hell even exists. And even I have some religious friends that'll be like, well, aren't you afraid of going to hell? I'm like, I don't believe in hell. And I truly do not believe in hell anymore. And I think that really helps me with like even my attachment and just healing from it. Because my attachment came from ghost investigating again, and it was another place
This
around
is a
here.
great story.
Yeah, no, and um I wanted to like it was kind of like a party mentality, so we had like a couple shots of like Fireball, don't judge, and and just
Don't
yeah,
hate.
or and we thought it'd be fun to go ghost hunting, and we did, and it was like my husband and a couple friends. And there was like this one ward that they said, do not go down that unless you're prepared for like something evil. Like there's something dark down there. And I was like, I'm definitely not going down there. But this is even before I knew my protections. This is maybe like 10 years ago. And so my husband, I don't know, he's a hesitant believer, I guess, because he hasn't really had too many experiences. Especially at that point, he was just like kind of entertaining me and just he was the DD. So, so we were like walking around and just didn't really experience anything, but the whole time I was like terrified. Like I literally like had my face covered. I was afraid what I was gonna see, and everything was supposed to be like friendly and just kind of just common place that people go to investigate and get some stuff. And I never even looked back on like any of the video or the recordings. I just deleted everything after. I had no interest. It was just like very like on the way home, I was literally deleting everything. And that night he actually dropped us off. Like it was going to be a girls' night, so we stayed at a hotel and he went home. And so all of my friends were just like in a hotel room. And I actually don't even remember leaving the building, and not necessarily because of the fireball, but because of like I ended up getting an attachment, and I had no idea what happened for the next like 6 hours. And it was extreme enough and scary enough that like my friends ended up getting their own hotel room because I was just not being myself and I was saying awful things to them. I was just like acting erratically, and I'm like, oh, and like just completely out of character, and they were so confused. They had no idea what to do. So they ended up they were all like, I guess they got a hotel room. I had no idea. And but they came back to the room to get their stuff, and I was sitting on the bed, just like on the edge of the bed, and suddenly like it was just like whoop, like a sheet taken off of my head. And I'm like, hey guys, like what are you doing? Like, what time is it? Like what, why are you packing up your stuff? And they're like, what? You have no idea? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what's happening? Like, where are you go? Like, no, I had no clue. And they're like, you just spent the last few hours saying like the meanest things to us and just like acting so strange and so weird. And I'm like embarrassed. And they're like so freaked out that they still went and stayed in their own room. And I stayed by myself. And the whole night, I'm like, what happened? Like, I have no idea. Like, I have no recollection of anything. But it wasn't even like you sober up. It was like clear as day. I was just like, I woke up and I was just, and I was there. And it was the strangest, most unsettling experience ever. And I didn't really understand that it was like an attachment at first. I thought, like, I just thought something strange happened, or like I'm going crazy, or I'm just like, you know, just maybe I drank too much while we were there, but they said I didn't drink anything once we got back to the hotel room, so that's where they were extra confused. And so it was just very strange, and I it was my own kind of fault because I did lower my vibration from ghost investigating and drinking alcohol, which does lower your
Yep.
vibration. And at the time, I didn't know any protections. I just walked in there with a flashlight and a recorder, and it was just like blah,
You
talking to
were a wide
anything,
open
wide
vessel,
open.
ready
And
to take something
yep,
on.
I know so much better now, but just knowing that I went through that attachment, like I understand the importance of the protections and the grounding, and I'm just grateful that like I have a powerful spirit team that was able to disconnect that attachment. Um, it felt heavier than just a human one, so I feel like it was like earthbound evil. It was something, I mean, for me not to remember anything. It was just the most disturbing experience, but it took me years, like probably like 8 years to really come to terms that it was like an attachment. And then my friend had the attachment like at her house when she was like drinking, and she had to move out and her dad was mad at her. So we kind of bonded over that, because when you try to tell someone that you had an attachment or experience like that, no one believes you. They're like, oh, it's an excuse. It's an excuse. I'm like, it's not an excuse. It's an actual experience. And it's just very lonely and very depressing way to like not have almost like validation from even the other people that experienced it. So that was an interesting moment. But one thing with even like excuses, let's see, I wrote that down too. That that sometimes like even the reason why like having it be seen as an excuse is like so unnerving, is that like sometimes like even that excuses are the lack of responsibility. It's easier to blame others or an outside energy than ourselves and the reality that we created for ourselves. It's like the devil made me do it mentality. And
Yep.
a lot of times that is seen as a demonic attachment or some kind of attachment, but an attachment, whenever it's confusing when you're like, I had an attachment, but then that's seen as an excuse, but the excuse is that you had an attachment. And so it's just, I hope some people find some comfort in that, and just
Yeah.
that it can, that if you are ghost investigating, have your protections. We can do a whole protection thing. The main thing I even wrote down a couple protections. Um, just like I always just ask God before I go into, you can ask whoever, the universe, source, whatever you want to call them or call it, or like just to call on like his pure white light of protection to surround you in a bubble of his protection. Um, uh, oh yeah, and then just anytime you might feel like an attachment's coming on, or if you're walking into a place that you know has had people who have attachments or that has like a low energy, like low vibration spirit, you're in control. So you can just say like you don't have the right to like attach to me. No one
Yep.
belongs, or in my space. Like there's a bubble around me. Don't come
Yep.
within like 3 feet
Intentions
of
are
me.
very strong.
Yeah, they have like you have the power and the power
Yep.
of using the name Christ. I know that's like a religious thing, but the
I
name,
do it.
yeah, the name Christ, and when you say like in the name of Christ, you must obey me. There's power in that name. There's power in the calling on Christ and to yeah, to use his name as your protection. Um
Yeah, I say Jesus Christ, but you can say just Christ if you want. That's just my preference. And it's different for everybody. But I also want to bring up too, I know this is going long, but because you talked about drinking. Now, Krissy didn't drink enough to be in blackout mode, but drinking any alcohol at all, you guys, you have to protect yourselves. Why do you think back in the day people called alcohol spirits?
Spirits, yep.
Because when you drink it, it opens up your vessel to spirits outside of yourself. And if you drink enough to go into a blackout, now you could get possessed. You allow things to be able to get in you and kind of puppeteer you while you're in that blackout. And I
Yep.
actually had that happen to me all the time because I would always drink into a blackout. My dad would too. And then all my friends would be like, "You were so evil and mean. And you said really horrible things to us. And you tried to hit me." And just like, what? Like, I've
Like,
never.
not me.
And
Yeah.
Krissy, either she's the nicest, sweetest, can't kill a fly kind of person for real. So, like, that is way out of our behaviors, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
And
we had the little bottles of a Fireball, and so we each maybe had like three over the whole time.
oh,
And
those are the hotel mini bar
yeah, the little
bottles.
mini bottles because they fit in my
Yeah.
purse. So like yeah, I maybe had like 3 shots over like 2 hours, and like I
Yeah,
don't
that is
know.
not
Like I'm
blackout
5'10",
worthy.
I can take it. Like it's not, yeah, it's not blackout. So it was a very strange experience. And even like my house growing up, like with the attachments, I know my whole family, except for me for whatever reason, or maybe because I was protected, but they all had experiences. Like my mom even had one where there was like the dark figure was in the corner of her room and put a net over her head, and she couldn't scream, she couldn't talk or anything. And like literally, I want to say 48 hours later, she had a stroke, and she was only 36 years old.
Oh,
And
that is
so
so
like,
scary.
yeah, so and that she was still like suffering from the migraines. I mean, for being 36 years old and having a stroke and just all of these experiences, like they can really affect you physically, your mental well-being, just like my dad had with like, addiction issues as soon as like or like as we moved in, they were exasperated, but like it just there's a lot of signs to look for, and especially like if you see them in like your friends or family, just mention it. I know you're gonna feel like a weirdo because I have been there,
But you
but
could be helping save that person's
yeah,
life.
or
Maybe
helping save
you
them from
might
having to
trigger
go through.
them,
Yeah, because like
or wake them up to something.
yeah, we just like share our stories like because we want people to know like what to look for, how to help, and also so it's kind of more make it more normal that like when my mom was like worked at the church, the Catholic church that we went to, and she was terrified to tell anybody of her experience with like
Oh,
the net over her head because she's like, we don't, that's not something I can talk about. But she told me at that time I had been seeing spirits and stuff in our house for a while. But I was just like, that's not for no reason. Like you saw that and it affected you. It was a warning that you're going to, be affected. Like if you don't kind of succumb to this or you don't stop fighting it with like, God and Jesus and, all of her religious beliefs, that it had to take the next step to almost like take her out. And she was the
yeah,
religious cord to our family because, my dad was actually an atheist, but then all the kids, we believed what my mom believed because she's the one that took us to church. So it's just kind of, just to listen to other people, to believe their stories and just to have compassion because the there's so many off the wall things that I've seen and experienced. And I know you too, you have too, Melanie. It just,
oh yeah.
just we're always like, I'm not crazy, but listen to this one, or like I know I'm gonna sound crazy.
Everything has a purpose. There is a
Yeah,
reason for everything. There's no such thing as coincidences. I don't care. I'll argue that till the day I die.
right.
Everything happens for a reason, but it's up to us to figure out why is this happening and what can I do to fix it.
And it's almost like an honor for someone to share their story with you because it's not easy and it's not easy to put yourself out there. Like this is out of my comfort zone. I know it was out of Melanie's. She's a little more practiced than I am, but just to share
At
this stuff.
first, I didn't like sharing this kind of stuff because I didn't like thinking people thought I was crazy. Now I don't care because it is what it is, and I had these
Yeah,
experiences.
now I don't care and I want to help other people with my
That's
experiences.
right.
That's like the whole purpose for this. So
That's
we
right.
just
People that don't believe didn't experience it. It's not for them then.
Yep. That's why I just hope someone learns something or takes something from this. I know I still have probably like 2 pages of notes that we didn't even get to share, but there's plenty of time. We'll definitely like touch back on this. And a
We
lot
can
of the
always do a
topics
part
like,
two down the road.
yeah, a lot of the topics overlap too. So they'll come out and all the information will come out. So we just have to kind of keep listening and keep watching. So,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, thank you for watching another episode. Next week, we're going to share even more ghost stories. We might do our top 10 of all time, I guess. That way, it's not a 10-hour podcast. But if you need any other information, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I do have more information. I know Melanie does too.